welcome to episode 2, navigating the future of SatCom collaboration between the satellite operators, multi-orbit systems, and software defined satellites. So, this is the part 2 of the episode, I would say. It's the same title we have for the both the episodes. It's just the part 2 that we are continuing from the previous conversation. I think the previous conversation we're discussing about primarily the upstream as part of the satellite market, satellite operators, as well as we briefly had introduction to the intuition platform as well by ST Engineering iDirect. Now we'll be taking a deep dive into the second part of the episode, primarily into the orbits and the global coverage. Joe, I would say just to start with the episode 2, I would say I'll start it in a broader sense. So, how are joint ventures and partnership between satellite operators transforming the competitive landscape and fostering innovation? Because we have seen in the recent times there has been quite a lot of acquisition that has happened, or the mergers that have happened in the industry. So, with respect to that, how the landscape is basically evolving from your perspective, and what does the market look like?
Yeah, no, that's a good observation indeed. We've seen some
Yeah.
changes in the industry, but what we also see is more and more collaboration in our industry, right?
Yes.
Also including satellite operators. So we see satellite operators more and more evolving to partnerships where they share infrastructure, share resources, and bring together their capabilities so that they can, in the end, deliver better services, expand their service coverage, optimize their cost as well from an investment perspective, so that they don't have to kind of look at it each time from an independent business case, right? So more
Yes.
collaboration across satellite operators across the board, I would say. This is both whether it's in GEO or NGSO, but certainly as well as in multi-orbit services, right? Because some
Yes.
of them have a specific capability, and then it's interesting to collaborate as well across the board
Yes.
to bring that together.
Yeah.
So, but also driving, of course, innovations in new technologies. We talked about in the first part about multi-orbit software-defined satellites. So also there, together as an industry, we have to transform that landscape, right? That competitive landscape. In the end, the goal is to
Yes.
provide resilience, flexibility, affordability on the connectivity across the different solutions, right?
Yes.
And also specifically as well, we talked about satellite operators, but we as iDirect believe that more collaboration is a good driver as well across our industry, right? And that's what we are calling diagonalization. So we at ST
Yes.
Engineering iDirect, we are introducing diagonalization, which is a concept intended to break the silos, right, which are traditionally there between horizontal collaboration, vertical collaboration, right, and then trying to solve parts of the puzzle. That's really where we want to pay forward and focus a more integrated business approach, right? So what's the
Yes.
goal there of this strategy is to aim to drive the interoperability between the satellite industry and align the needs with the broader telecom and tech landscape. So the future for us and for many, I believe, lies in the networks of networks, right, where everything is connected. So let's focus on enabling that capability, and let's collaborate across the industry as well to develop that compatibility, which will be the foundation then for seamless connectivity and where satellite can play its role as well of the connectivity mix.
Absolutely. And I mean, because we previously discussed the multi-orbit system as well, so I'd like to, kind of touch up on that part as well, because we're discussing upon the broader sense of the satellite operators. So, what are the biggest challenges in integrating multi-orbit constellations such as GEO, LEO, and MEO to provide seamless global coverage? Because, of course, you can provide global coverage, having a multi-orbit system, but what are the intricate, I would say, potential challenges that come into the play? Because there has to be some kind of thing that keeps this coverage floating in a seamless manner. Otherwise, I think there might be some, I would say, challenges where it might even get disrupted. So yeah,
Yeah.
please proceed to
Yeah,
explain on
absolutely.
this.
It's something which is indeed extremely important, right? And we have a
Yes.
long-standing experience into that because if you think about the global mobility network, even on GEO, it's combining many satellites, many satellite beams as well into one network now. But now,
Yes.
of course, as we add more and more capabilities and multi-orbit,
Yes.
that's a bigger, a large increase, and the biggest challenge is complex network coordination and handovers between all these different satellites and between these different orbits.
Yes.
So requiring sophisticated software and the network equipment as well to handle these very frequent handoffs, but also to ensure that you have a consistent, uninterrupted service as the users move around the coverage or as the
Yes.
satellites move around the user as well, right? Because that's also
Yes.
something which is changing with the NGSO. Another challenge as well is involving latency and bandwidth optimizations.
Yes.
So different orbits have different latencies, varying latencies, but also potentially different throughput levels. So how do you manage network performance for applications across these different connectivity options?
Yes.
How do you address low latency services, which are better served by an NGSO, but still you integrate that together with geo, where you can have the traffic mix going over the different orbits
Absolutely.
without additional delays. But it's also about the cost and the infrastructure that is needed to serve those demands, right? So multi-orbit systems require extensive ground segment infrastructure as well. They
Yes.
need advanced user terminals capable to connect to multiple satellites or across multiple orbits as well. So that's one of the elements which is essential as well to make that happen. And if you don't
Yes.
have the right technology, it becomes cost prohibitive as well to serve certain parts of the market, right? So that's
Yes.
really an important element as well in the context of multi-services. We have to look at all the aspects of that
Yes.
equation and then bring it together, right, and deploy and maintain on a global scale.
Absolutely. And I mean, I agree with the ground station part, especially that you mentioned. It's a very complex and critical part. I have not seen much of the conferences discussing the two things, that is software and the ground station. I think we really need to have a conversation about these aspects of the space industry, because both of these are very important as we proceed ahead, especially the ground station one. And again, as I mentioned, both software and ground station, so I'm coming to that part again. So from your perspective, how are operators utilizing software defined networks to adapt to evolving market demands and customer expectation? I would say, to fulfill the customer expectations in the satcom sector.
Yeah. So as we were talking before, you have now flexible satellites, software-defined
Yes.
satellites. You have the same equivalent flexible toolbox as well on the ground, which is what we are developing with our Intuition ground system as well. So, but now it's about software-defined networks, right? So the software-defined networks allow then to operators to dynamically reconfigure the network resources, to reconfigure the connectivity. So that includes changing the bandwidth, changing the coverage area, changing the power
Yes.
allocation, all in real time from a satellite perspective, but also enables them then, if you orchestrate it end to end, to quickly respond to the fluctuating market
Yes.
demands in your users on the ground or on your users which are on the sea, in the air as well, or for example, as well for emergency response services. It's a very good example, emergency response, where let's say an earthquake or another disaster creates an immediate demand on a certain place in Earth
Yes.
as well. So it's important to quickly have the resources available and bring network connectivity to those areas. So that's exactly a good example of serving that fluctuating demand and the importance
Yes.
of time to market.
Yeah.
So yeah, operators can then also use this flexibility to think about more advanced service models, right? Like subscription type based models would allow operators as well to think to scale up services very rapidly up and down as needed, right? So you can
Yes.
use the flexibility in the software defined networking to
Yeah.
deliver exactly what the customer needs quasi immediately and for the time he needs it. And this can all be automated. So this adaptability aligns with that growing customer expectation as well, so that he can consume and pay for what he needs in function of the time, right?
Yes.
Then also, as we said before, of course, it's all about satellite integration, but it's also integration with terrestrial networks combined with the multi-orbit, my orbit 0 as well.
Yes.
So it's also providing operators with the flexibility to optimize these connections based on latency, cost, coverages, but also about user experience and resilience, right? So that's where all the
Yes.
software-defined networking comes together, I would say, to serve that end user across the different markets and applications.
Interesting. And I mean, this is the final part of the episode that we are getting on to now. As we have discussed, I think we have discussed both the ground station and the satellite part, as well as the software part of the industry. Now I would say this question is more, I would say, up to you. I mean, what you as an individual and an expert in this company observe. So looking forward, what strategic shifts do you anticipate in the satellite industry as collaboration and technology continue to evolve, and especially I would say technology not in the sense of user feasibility, but also in terms of things which we were not able to imagine previously. I mean, there were several companies who tried to do NGSO stuff but failed. But we are seeing there are players rising now, and not only one or two, but there are several players rising now. So if this kind of shift is continuing, and we are going to see much more, I would say, wider innovation wave coming in the future. So from that perspective, what do you anticipate for the industry, and where do you see strengthening iDirect as well as a whole group at the forefront of this innovation, or do you see you'll be spearheading some of the kind of trending waves in the market as well? Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we see that evolve? It's a very good question because that's what driving us as well on innovation and technology development. Of course,
Yes.
as we are a technology company, so we expect a further increase and focus on hybrid and multi-orbit networks. Right. That's really where
That's
satellite is
interesting.
expanding its role. So operators expanding and service providers expanding the integration of GEO, MEO, LEO satellites with and connectivity with terrestrial networks, creating those hybrid solutions and optimizing connectivity, right?
Yes.
Bringing better value to the customer and complementing as well, of course, the
Yes.
strength of the terrestrial. So yeah, to do that, operators, service providers are dependent as well on ground systems to meet that
Yes.
resilience, to meet that flexibility, but also to meet that scaling, right? Because we also see
Yeah.
that's the satellite market is expanding, right? So how do you kind of address that growing scale as well of that expanding market? So, and this is where our focus is, and this is where the diagonalization as well comes into play, right? For us, the future is
Yes.
about facilitating exactly that greater integration, greater interoperability, so that we can unlock new possibilities for seamless connectivity,
Yes.
right? It's if we just keep
Absolutely.
doing what we have been doing, we're not taking advantage of everything what is
Yes.
happening around us, right? So we really have to think across the board, diagonal, let's say, and look at every aspect to that, and position ourselves as an industry at the forefront of that kind of revolution that is happening
Absolutely.
today, right? And that's where our focus is as well with our intuition platform. So the future of
Absolutely.
satellite communication is not about choosing left or right, right? It's not a
Yes.
black and white game. Yeah, it's about breaking down these barriers, providing connectivity in the best possible way, and building a truly interconnected world. So, but it's all easy said and done. But how are we going to do that? So that's where we are a big believer as well in further standardization and creating that
Yes.
open ecosystem and leveraging open standards, right? We have been there already a bit in the satellite industry and the broadcast. And we have done it successfully, of course, for the DTH. That was a key element as well to have that large DTH market available today. But let's now do that as well in a similar scale as well for connectivity services. And of
Yes.
course, the good thing is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So there's where standardization is happening today. And that's where we see 5G and 5G NTN a key
Yes.
driver as well to unlocking that these silos and let's say and
Yeah.
create that bigger collective ecosystem as well to break down all these silos which are in place today, right? So really driving initiatives on standardization 5G, 3GPP, 5G non-terrestrial
Yes.
networks specifically, of course, but also how do we transport, let's say, RF signals in a digital way? So that's
Yes.
the DeFi standard as well. So all these things are key enablers as well to take advantage, let's say, of all the technology innovation happening in terrestrial
Yes.
networks and bring it all together as well, combined with satellite. So that's where we focus our energy and innovation as well, so that we can address that challenge of the industry to find a way for all of us to come together and
Absolutely.
build a stronger and a broader market as well for satellite connectivity. So
Absolutely.
that's what we are focused on,
Yeah.
creating that open ecosystem and going to that
Ye-
full standardization as well, driven by 5G.
Yes. That's interesting. Yeah, I think the hybrid markets that you mentioned, we have plans to basically cover the hybrid markets in the upcoming episodes. And I believe as we proceed ahead, especially going into the next year, it's just, I think, 1.5 month away we are from 2025. It would be interesting to basically, kind of extend a discussion maybe next year on the hybrid markets that ST Engineering iDirect is targeting. So yeah, overall, I believe wonderful insights into the market, and this was the, I mean, of course, 114 and 15th episode, I would say, generally for space defense and security, but first and second episode for media and broadcasting tech. So, Engineering iDirect has basically kicked off our media broadcasting tech episode for this podcast because, I mean, we were able to cover a lot of things on space defense and security, but looking at the demand of the communications broadcasting and the video market, I believed it needs a separate kind of segment where we can cover dedicatedly these topics. And thank you very much, Joe, for like kicking off this new podcast as well, and on a previous existing one too.
Thank you. It
And
was
I
a pleasure. And
absolutely, and I hope to host you again on the podcast in the future episodes. Yeah.
thank you.